So I got in touch with Sam Raimi. His people
Really?
kind of contact. Yeah, he saw the last episode.
Interesting.
Yep, he listened to it.
It hasn't even aired yet.
I sent it out his way. I didn't tell you this.
Wow.
I know you're so shy.
You gave him a screener.
Yeah. I think he really digested it and took it to heart. Because when he made Evil Dead 2, after our review of it,
oh, so you sent it back in time?
Yeah. This is something that's possible due to things that will be discussed later, aka the events of this movie.
Right.
And yeah, he fixed a lot of things that we had issue with, and so I just wanted to give him a shout out and say thank you, Mr. Raimi, for, I would have liked a co-writing credit, anything.
I think producer's credit probably is more. Maybe
a script editor.
Story
editor,
punch-up writer, something like that. Yeah. Well, I think
I'm just glad he really listened to us. And
the world of cinema and honestly the rabid fan base of this trilogy owes you a huge debt of gratitude.
And they're welcome.
Without you, there is no Army of Darkness.
That's right.
There's no Ash versus Evil Dead. Good job. You've altered history.
I was actually the one who convinced Sam Raimi to name him Ash. Because I was like,
okay,
I think we're gonna, everyone's favorite Pokemon guy.
We're going to start the show now.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Picture Show with Liar and Phil Rude. I am Phil Rude and I'm the dad.
And I'm Austin Rude and I'm wearing my cone of shame today.
We should have a cone of shame that we make each other wear when bad puns are made or just bad bits or something.
On our audio podcast.
Yeah.
It'll give a little echo.
It's a way... Whoever's got the reverb on their voice is like, oh, no, that's just the cone of shame echoing around.
That's right. And each week we watch a movie and we talk about it.
The cone of shame is not for the audience's benefit. It is literally to shame each other with.
Oh, yeah. It's the dynamic.
It's purely to keep us in our places. Yes, we do. We talk about the cone of shame and we also talk about a movie.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we talk about movies.
We talk about many things, including what we've been watching. But before we get to that, I do want to make a special shout out here to our friends at the Pop-Up Filmcast, Derek and Keith. They just, as we're recording this, they're a couple past that, I'm sure, by the time it drops. They just hit their 200th episode.
That's awesome.
Which is a huge milestone in podcasting. When you look at, we are closing in on 50, which I think is a big milestone for us. But Derek and Keith run just one of the most interesting cinema podcasts.
That's right.
Around. You and I have been guests on it.
We have.
And it is just a super fun show to do. Keith and Derek are great guys. And I just want to say congratulations to you guys for hitting 200. Now give us 200 more. No, for real. Big props. And if you guys aren't familiar with Pop-Up Filmcast, I really recommend you check them out.
Yeah, they do great work. And if anyone deserves 200, it is them.
It is the people who put in... I will say I'm happy to see them get that. I will say anyone deserves 200 that is willing to put in the time and the effort to making 200
That's
podcast
correct.
episodes that's a big task. And it's shout out to anybody who starts hitting these big milestones. You know what I mean?
That's when you really start to think about the time
the
that
hours
goes into 200 episodes, especially like a small thing where it's not like a TV show, which is like a bunch of people working. Like there's like a few people doing all the work.
A couple
on
people
this.
doing. Watching movies, organizing notes, editing. No matter, I mean, some people dive deep into editing. Some people like me, are pretty fast and loose with it. But I mean, over at the Pop-Up Filmcast, they spend hours and hours working on their clapping alone. It's unbelievable. That's the kind of courage they're having on display over there. So I just wanted to shout them out real quick. It's a great show, and it's really cool to see them hit that big 200.
Yeah, that's a good goal.
Now, past that, what have we been watching this week?
What have we been watching?
Not much, because we're right on the heels of our last episode.
That's true. Do you have anything, though?
Not really. I'm trying to think. I've been catching up on a couple YouTube series that I've fallen behind on. Welcome to the Basement, things like that. And just still working on my graphic novel script. Talking about a couple other possible projects. And just starting to do a little bit more of that than listening or watching a lot of things. So
that's right. You're the big working man. Don't have time for silly little cartoons.
I would love to have time for silly little cartoons. I mean, I watched Evil Dead 2, and I did watch some old Game of Thrones episodes from the good seasons. I like to just kind of put them on in the background. While I'm doing cool stuff like folding laundry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of crazy lifestyle I'm living over here. But yeah, it's pretty quiet on, I still have a bunch of movies that I need to get watched. Not just for the show, but just in general.
Right.
That I need to make some time for. But I just have not done that yet. So what do you got? You got anything more than that? I hope so.
Well, I haven't...
We're going to look like the worst movie podcast of all time who doesn't even watch stuff.
That's right. I just sat in my room for the week. Didn't do anything.
Nothing.
No, I have not started anything new, but I did finish the most recent season of Sex Education.
Oh, okay.
It's a Netflix show. I don't think I've talked about it on here.
I don't know that I know people are watching it. A lot of people are talking about, however, was that the last season or the last episode of the series? Or was it just the season?
It was just the last episode of this series.
I've been hearing buzz about it, seeing people talk about it on Twitter. But it's like a show that's been kind of flying under the radar. Like, I've been aware of it, I see it around, but I don't really hear people talking about it.
Yeah, you're either in the know or you're not.
I guess I'm not.
Well, that's kind of how Netflix originals are anyway.
A lot of it now, unless it's like Stranger Things or something that has this huge nerd base to it.
Sex Education actually, because it's a teen drama, it has a lot of
that might be why it's flying
fans.
Under the radar for me.
But it's one of those shows, basically the premise is this kid's mom is a sex therapist and he's sexually repressed, but he's really emotionally intelligent. So he starts helping his classmates out with their sexual problems. And it's basically a show that teaches you about all of this stuff that isn't taught about in
actual sex
in
education
schools.
classes.
Yeah. So it talks about stuff like periods and
just
in general, anything
just reproductive health
with,
and things like that. Yeah,
exactly. And it does it in a really cool way, and it also does a really good job of subverting tropes.
Okay.
So it's one of those shows. It's one of the only shows where there's 25, 30-year-olds playing high schoolers, where I'm like, well, I'm okay with this because it's less sexualizing and it's more well, we have to show them having sex, but we're going to show awkward,
okay. Yeah.
We're going to show authentically, this is what it's like, and this is what a high schooler does, and
that it's clumsy and yeah.
It's educational, like that. It's in the name.
Sure. Okay. It sounds slightly like there's a movie called Charlie Bartlett. Is that it? With Anton Yelchin and Robert Downey Jr.
Okay.
I think Kat Dennings is in that movie. And it's about this kid who is... he starts like listening to... It's about a lot of things, but there's a kind of subplot within that. And I don't think Charlie Bartlett's a great movie, but it has some interesting parts to it. And he basically like goes into a stall in the bathroom and people come in and tell them their problems. So he's almost like a therapist. And then he takes those problems to his therapist who prescribes him meds that he goes...
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's a very like dangerous, like it's not like a lesson of things to do, but it is about like there's a weird, it kind of comes around to like these kids like Charlie because he listens to their problems without judgment. And you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
it's the safe space kind of
yes,
thing.
It's a really interesting movie. And it was before people were talking about safe spaces and acknowledging that kids had problems. It's an interesting movie. I don't think it's a particularly good movie, but it really has some interesting things going on in it. And I remember that Robert Downey Jr. it's probably one of the best acting performances I've ever seen him do.
I wonder if the writers of this show have seen that because like it might just be a coincidence or a reference, but like literally that's what happens is they go into the bathroom stalls and talk about it through the stalls.
It could be influenced by that, or it could just be like if you talk to kids, like this is what they want. They just want somebody who will listen to their problems and give them advice that is not coming from some authoritarian place.
Or like for personal gain.
I had a family member who went into rehab at one point. And I went to visit them. And then another family member told me, like, that means a lot because you are this relation to... It's more of a peer relationship. They're like, this wasn't coming from... for those who don't know, I'm sure I've mentioned it, I'm a sober person now. So I've been... Not to rehab, but I've been through sobriety. But yeah, there is an aspect of it not coming from a parent, not coming from a teacher or a cop or something like that, coming from more of a peer who is not putting any kind of spin or judgment on it.
Right. You understand your relationship to that person.
Right.
And
they're speaking to you on the same level. So that's really interesting. I have not, like I said, 3 seasons in?
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to watch that show, but it sounds actually... really interesting.
They did confirm a 4th season, which is rare for Netflix.
Wow.
So I guess that does say something about the viewing numbers.
Dude, Netflix, that's going around because Ozark's getting a season 4. Stranger Things is getting a season 4. Better hurry, Stranger Things. Those kids are like getting married. And
you're
those kids are on second marriages now. That's like, oh my God. But yeah, Netflix is expanding because it used to be 3 and then they're like, see ya, we're done with you.
I think it still is 3 and done, but for the ones that make it above a certain invisible line that we don't get to see.
Isn't that weird?
It is weird, a little.
Like even creators of shows have no idea what their viewing numbers are.
That I think is wrong. Like not showing the public, that's one thing because that can... create a perception, if this has low viewership, I don't want to watch it.
I don't know what the public would need to know numbers for anyway. I always think that's just a curiosity thing. But as a creator, it just seems like counterintuitive to not tell people.
Yeah.
We talked about Woody Harrelson a couple episodes ago. And when he was on Mark Maron, he was promoting some movie he had made for Netflix. I think it was that Bonnie and Clyde one.
Okay.
And Maron asked him, he's like, so is the movie doing well? And he's like, I have no idea. Like, they don't tell us how many people are watching. We have no clue.
It's so disappointing.
We don't know if this movie is performing well or not. All we have is like word of mouth, to just kind of get a feel of, are people watching it? Are people liking it?
That's like not telling a teacher like their assessment grade until the next year, and it's like, this is how much you're getting paid.
It's really weird, but
it is strange.
It's a weird system in streaming. But that sounds like an interesting show.
It is one.
So, cool. If anybody else has watched it and wants to weigh in on it, make some noise about it, because, I get it that I'm not that demographic. I'm not in touch with a lot of like young adult people on Twitter or on my social media who probably are. This show is aimed more at like your age group.
Yeah. And I think I'm slowly getting edged out of that age group.
Austin, you are probably the youngest person I follow on Twitter. No, Logan. Logan is
okay.
Who is, and yeah, I'm 46. I shouldn't be following young people. It looks gross, but no. So yeah, there is stuff like that. I think that is just under my radar. It's just not in the circles,
and that's fine.
Of people I'm
I'm
not even knocking it. I'm just saying, like, so I always am kind of. I think the last show that I remember that was aimed at younger people that everybody talked about was that 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah,
because
that was controversial.
It was because people my age were concerned about their kids watching it. They were actually watching it with their kids. They were having conversations about the topics that were brought up in there. Again, I'm speaking only in generalities because I only generally know what that show is about. I didn't watch it. But I think that's what it takes for people my age to be aware of a show that's aimed at teenagers, is for them to be concerned about it. And I'm not even invalidating that concern. It's... No,
you should monitor what your kids are...
You should be having conversations like that, yeah.
Quick side note, I was talking to a kid at work today, 3rd, 4th grader, okay? And he told me that he had been watching Squid Games, which, if you don't know, that's a Korean horror TV show.
Okay.
About a game show where if you lose, like, these silly little challenges, you get shot in the head. And this kid is watching it, and he's like, yeah, I didn't get any sleep last night. And I'm like, okay, buddy. Go off to class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watch what your kids are watching, please.
Be aware of what your kids can handle. That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you how to parent your kids, but...
I am. And if you don't...
But please parent your kids. Okay, now that that hunk is over, let's move on to what we watched. And we watched kind of the same movie as last week.
A little bit, yeah.
Sort of. But with money. We watched 1987's Evil Dead 2. This movie finds Ash, the lone survivor of flesh-possessing demons. He's holed up in a cabin with strangers while the demons continue their onslaught. This movie stars Bruce Campbell as Ash, Sarah Berry as Annie, Dan Hicks as Jake, Cassie Wesley DePaiva as Bobby Joe, Denise Bixler as Linda, and Ted Raimi as possessed Henrietta. This film was directed by Sam Raimi and written by Sam Raimi and Scott Spiegel.
That is Evil Dead 2.
That is Evil Dead 2. Let's just start. Let's just lay it out there. You did not particularly enjoy Evil Dead 1. I think Evil Dead 1 is fine. I think we both came to a place where, like, we recognize what this movie is. We respect this movie. Didn't particularly have a lot of fun with it.
Sure, yeah.
Does that hold for Evil Dead 2? Since plot-wise, it's fairly similar. Tone-wise, it's a little more fun, I think. But what are your overall impressions? Does that carry over, or did this turn the corner for you?
Here's the thing. I loved watching this movie. I don't know what the intended tone was, and I feel like that's an issue. Like, I saw this as a comedy, like a full
I do too.
on,
yeah.
like it was comedic.
It's not a parody. It's not Scary Movie. It's not a spoof. But it is funny. This is a funny movie. I think there's no doubt about it.
Right. I think one of the scenes that exemplifies that is like one of the girl characters is like, "You don't have to hold my hand so tight." And the guy's like, "I'm not holding your hand." And then boom, cut to the hand.
The ash hand. Yeah.
Just stuff like that. Like, it's shown using the movie language, right? Through shots and visuals and everything. It's shown as horrific, but it comes off as funny. And so it's weird because I don't know what emotion the director wants me to have, but I know what I'm having. And it's that this is a comedy.
I don't think it's too much to ask that you have multiple emotions. I don't think it's too much to ask that you are a little bit scared and still think it's funny. I think this is a really dark comedy wrapped up in a horror movie.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no doubt about it. It is funny. And this movie has stakes to it, but it doesn't take the stakes that seriously. Like, Ash, in the first, 15 minutes, he kills and buries his girlfriend. With, no emotion about it. He's just like, well, that happened.
The setup to this movie is so 1, 2, 1, 2. Like, that it just... I truly, the moment he killed his girlfriend, I was like, so he's the only character in this now? Like, I was very confused, and they just kept going.
They kind of they summarize Evil Dead in about the first 15 minutes of this. Do you think that's fair? Like, all the events of Evil Dead, right up to Ash killing Linda and being the lone survivor, that is kind of the first act of this movie.
I'm gonna veto that. Because here I thought...
There's still more that I think it still carries over a lot of Evil Dead 1, but I think the plot of Evil Dead 1 is...
the plot of Act 1 of this.
Yes.
That's correct. And I thought that that's where we were going, and this was just going to be like, the setup is the same, and then the entire rest of the story is leaning into that Ash on his own defeating possessed monsters.
Right.
And then that all takes a turn with the B plot. And so what I think this actually is just the plot elements rearranged. Mainly the exposition scientist guy whose cabin it was in the first movie. They've just turned that into part of the actual movie rather than something that happened before the movie started. So they just rearranged things, and I think it worked out really well.
Was this a better experience than Evil Dead? The Evil Dead?
Yes. Right. I would have not shut this off.
I agree. And I think that's why. I think this, by this point, it's 6 years later. And I think Sam Raimi has grown as a storyteller. He has a co-writer on this. He's better at storytelling. He's better at filmmaking. He has a bigger budget. And I don't want to focus on the budget too much. In the last episode, I did say that Stephen King gave him a bunch of money. And I read in the trivia, that is not true. But Stephen King did help him raise money.
Okay. All right.
He talked to Dino De Laurentiis, who's a big producer, and got him to back making this movie. He put him in
connections.
Yes, he put him in touch with people who would raise money and help him make this film. But I think there's a lot that happens here that is based on the original movie. It's just done in a more economical way. You know what I mean? He gets to the cabin. It's just him and Linda. There aren't 3 other people with him. They get there. He goes, "Oh, hey, a tape recorder." She goes, "Oh, play it." It's not like digging around in the basement for and then making this big deal out of playing the tape sporadically. And it just kicks up everything right away and really cuts to the chase of this movie. It doesn't make you wait around for it. And I think this movie never bores you the way I think Evil Dead takes a little while to get going.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like we said, it gets caught in a loop in the end where it's just doing the same thing over and over again.
I will say it avoids those faults by like really just cutting to the chase and then going into it, and then the middle of this story is very good and the end. But like I would say that the beginning part of this movie was boring. Like it did not hook me.
Are you talking about just the very, very beginning, or like even when like Linda's decapitated body comes up out of the grave?
I think that's when it starts to get interesting. But even then, I was literally just like, because I wasn't processing it because it was told incorrectly. It was not structured the way it should have been. Like it was just very, oh, she's dead, okay.
Right.
Oh, she's back, okay. Oh, she's dead again, okay.
Were you expecting this to be like more of a serious horror movie?
It's not even that. It's that like they didn't build her up as a threat or anything.
Okay.
It was just a shock, and it wasn't even a shock because I knew she was going to die. So it just came off as weird.
Yeah, it is a little weird because it's hard to care about a character that we just met. You know what I mean? Like she's introduced and it's like, oh, they're a young couple in love who's basically just broke into this cabin. They're like, what do we do if the owners come here? It's like they don't even know. They just drove out to this cabin.
Super weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. And then they turn on the tape recorder. She gets possessed, and he kills her like immediately.
Yeah,
like it is very jarring. I get it, and a little bit like, what is this?
like,
you know,
literally just 5 more minutes would have been enough to just cement.
Show them as a actual relationship a little bit.
Not even that, like just him realizing what's happened to her.
Yeah.
Like I think the reason they just cut to the chase is because the audience knows what's coming because it's a sequel. But like his character didn't. So like to process like, oh, she's unsavable. Like this is the woman you love and she's up and moving. She's not like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, like, I don't think they were. It's easy to say I don't think they were trying to give a whole lot of depth or reality to the reactions of people in this movie.
Listen, if you start babbling nonsense, I'm not going to go straight to cutting your head off.
I think that's what, in the world of this movie that is just horror comedy and just bizarro.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what it is. Everything is kind of just at face value here and go along for the ride. I don't think they have any pretense about making this like believable in any way. I mean, he fights a giant tree at the end of the movie. Like it's I feel like this movie is Act 1 is Evil Dead 1. And he just did a quick rehash of that and didn't care about fleshing relationships out.
Yeah.
And then Act 2 is basically it's Night of the Living Dead. It's all these strangers are trapped in the house now and there's evil things outside. And they're fighting for survival and getting picked off one by one. That's Night of the Living Dead.
It is. You know what we talked about last time about how it's very setup punchline
Mm-hmm.
with the horror. Like, it is that in this movie, but with the added characters, everything's different. Like, the dynamic is always changing. Like when they find Ash, knock and they knock him out in
Oh
the
yeah,
cabin, and then he's trapped underneath
in the cellar.
the cellar, yeah. And then there's a new threat, so now he's no longer trapped. And then one of them leaves or something. I don't remember, but like it keeps shifting, and so that keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
And it's never repetitive and boring.
Every event is feeding another event. Like
Exactly.
they put him in the cellar, and then they play the tape of the professor talking about how he put his undead wife in the cellar. And then it's like, oh, now we have to get her out. You know,
And then she pops out of her grave in the most like
it's great.
zany way possible.
Yes. Ted Raimi, Sam Raimi's brother, playing possessed Henrietta, I think it's great.
I didn't know it until
yeah.
I didn't even realize it was a man.
But that leads up to the scene that I think we're talking about. Is this a comedy? Is this horror? I think it is both. And this next scene, I think, just shows that so well. Is she's trying to come up out of the cellar, and you feel the tension of them trying to keep her contained in there. So they stomp on her head or the cellar, and her eyeball pops out, and it flies across the room into is it Bobby Joe?
Yeah,
into Bobby
right
Joe's
into her
mouth. And it is just the funniest, most zany Looney Tunes thing, right on the heels of this for real tension of trying to keep a monster contained. And I think that is the blend that makes this movie genius. I think the ability to put those elements together and have it flow from one to the other without a bump. And maybe you disagree with me, and that's not a good transition. For me, that is a perfect blending of those two genres, and that's what makes Sam Raimi's style, I think, what it is.
No, I think it's a really good thing. It's using comedy as the what is it called? Like the stress release.
The break.
Yeah, as opposed to the jump scares that were prevalent in the first movie.
It's true, yeah.
So, like, much more effective, less cheap, and I think it adds to the build-up to the climax. Which, to be honest, little bit lackluster.
It was okay. Silly, yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I expected more horror. I didn't feel tension in the last in that last showdown, basically.
The conceit of, I think, all of these movies, or at least this one and Army of Darkness, is that above all, it's silly. It's not, and I think this is the progression of Sam Raimi. Is he was trying to make a legitimate horror movie with The Evil Dead, that had some comedy sprinkled throughout there, or some just silliness. I think by this time he wasn't afraid to let this movie be silly and still take itself seriously. Like, within the world of this movie, Ash's dismembered hand is a threat. It's ridiculous. It's silly, but it does, like, attack people.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like,
it's seen Addams Family, and it knows what it's capable of.
It knows what it can do. And it's running around, and it's giving him the finger through the mouse hole in the wall and getting caught in the mousetrap. It's all just, it's ridiculous. But it somehow fits into this movie and the tone that this movie is setting.
Right. I think another big comedy moment is when he knows he has to kill his girlfriend, and he looks, and there's a chainsaw shaped chalk mark
the outline
on the wall where a chainsaw should be, and then boom, the chainsaw, which is carried by his girlfriend's body.
That is, when the body comes in with the chainsaw is great. I think there's a lot of moments like that in this movie that are letting themselves be the point of tension and still be silly. And kind of, they know it's silly, but I think I'm going to jump right into the comparison I wrote down. It's very much in the same way Tim Burton builds a world that is ridiculous and it's twisted and weird. But 5 minutes into that world, you buy in. I think a good comparison to this movie would be Beetlejuice. Something that is slightly scary, dark and edgy, very weird, but ultimately it's also funny. There's real stakes to it, but it's also silly.
Yeah.
And so it's a balance between funny and scary. It's a balance between dark and light, and it's all wrapped up in this weird package. I think this is a little bit more of a hardcore Tim Burton movie.
I was gonna say that I think Beetlejuice leans a little more into the comedy, and this leans a little more into the horror.
Right.
But it's all still there.
Beetlejuice is a little more of, I don't want to call it a family movie, but it was a little more of an all ages movie. Kids, when that movie came out, kids watched it. You know,
it's a Broadway musical now.
It is right. It's a broader audience, and this is a comedy that's aimed at the real horror fans. You know, who are going to get that this is Night of the Living Dead. They're going to get. This was for the people who saw the cult independent movie, The Evil Dead. You know, and we're coming back to see what Evil Dead 2 was going to be. Like, this movie, I think, had an audience built into it. And gave them something really different than any other horror movie.
I think they knew that. Because there's a bunch of little, like... The way that they reference the previous movie in this movie, like, is very strange, but also brilliant. Because I feel like there's a few nods to it, like in the very beginning, where she's like, "Where are we going?" And Ash is like, "I know a place." It's very, like, wink to the audience,
right?
Like, oh, it's the same cabin. And then they show the trap door, in like a shot that I feel like is very like reminiscent, like it brought me back to the first movie. They show the same cellar trapdoor,
right?
But they're using it in a different way, and so you get like same and different. You feel that emotion again.
Do you think this movie is a sequel or a remake?
I don't know. I think it's a sequel in movie terms.
Right.
I don't think this takes place in the same universe. I think this is...
Oh, you think it's like a multiverse thing?
I think this is a parallel universe.
Interesting.
Or a different version of Ash.
Yeah, I just think it's a straight up remake, honestly.
I don't know. It pretty much
you
is.
Know, but I mean, it's introducing things like, I mean, he's with his girlfriend is named Linda. She has the same necklace. You know, Linda died in Evil Dead 1.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to know anything about the Necronomicon and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff online that's like, oh no, it's a remake, and then other people are like, no, it's actually a real sequel because of this line, and I'm just like, it kind of doesn't matter because I think you can watch this one cold.
It's both.
Yeah. But it is, I think it's an interesting beast either way. I wanted to stay on that Tim Burton comparison too, because we talked about last time the idea of like Sam Raimi, looking at what Sam Raimi had done. Why would they pick him to make a Spider-Man movie?
Sure.
And Tim Burton, I think, I didn't think of this last time until I started comparing. Watching this, I was in my head comparing a lot of Tim Burton stuff to a lot of Sam Raimi stuff and realizing they're very similar. Tim Burton made a Batman movie just a couple years after this came out. After doing Beetlejuice, after doing Edward Scissorhands, doing these really dark, twisted things. Right. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, why would you tap this guy to make a superhero movie? And they both made superhero movies that are, I think, considered very quaint by our standards of superhero movies today. They're very colorful. They're very much made to look like a living comic book.
And they're very much liked by the audience that grew up watching them and not by anyone else.
Kind of. They're kind of early pioneers to what superhero movies would make, but they're not really, I think, considered super relevant anymore.
I don't know if it's about relevance, though.
I mean, just as far as, like, stylistically, yeah. I don't think people are clamoring to watch these movies anymore. But they were kind of groundbreaking at the time. So I just think it's an interesting parallel between their two careers that both of them were doing things that didn't really... We wouldn't look at that today and go, this guy needs to direct a comic book movie. Mm-hmm. But at the time, someone was like, all right, comic book movies are, they can be weird. Maybe we should get this weirdo director to,
that makes a lot of sense.
Do the thing.
When I think about it, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's also, like I've talked about, it was before comic book movies had a studio directive of, it has to look like this. It has to do that, like, these guys were given comic book movies and told, yeah, just,
whatever.
Yeah, do your thing. Make it a Sam Raimi movie. And we talked about before, like, the Dr. Octopus scene in Spider-Man 2. It's super Sam Raimi. Like, now that you've seen these movies, think about that scene where they go to take the robot arms off of him to do the surgery.
Yeah, and then they have the close-up shots
like,
of,
that
shadows.
That's a crazy Sam Raimi movie of or scene with the tracking, the cameras running through just like it happens in this movie.
I would also I don't know, something about the Thanksgiving dinner scene where it's all a little awkward and stilted.
It's tense.
Yeah.
And there's a menace underneath it. There's a little bit of danger in that scene. You just sense it. It's just there. Yeah. I think that sums up a lot of like what this movie is. Like, this movie is like, it's funny, you're laughing, you're having a good time, but there's also a danger. There's like, what's coming next? Something's coming next, even if it's not genuinely scary. It's something is coming.
Speaking of genuinely scary,
okay,
they show the monster in this movie, and
the big tree.
I am suddenly not terrified anymore because it looks stupid.
It is silly, yeah. But I think, I don't think this movie is scary. I don't think.
Sure, but I was just disappointed. It's one of those things I really liked not seeing. I liked that there's this invisible force, and it's chasing people and doing these weird POV shots. And to see it, I didn't want to see it. Like, plot-wise, you could have easily just trapped it in someone's body and then boom, sent it and done the same thing. But I get that they wanted like a big showdown.
I think they wanted a big crazy thing to happen at the end.
I just don't think it looked crazy. I felt like it looked like a guy in like a Halloween costume.
Conceptually,
with a tree.
It's crazy. I mean, a big tree, a big sentient tree coming to. I mean, that concept is odd, and I think that's what he wanted to do.
The concept is odd. The execution, I will challenge.
That prop was called Rotten Applehead or something by the crew, because that's
like
what
the Wizard of Oz tree, but rotten.
It looked like, and apparently it was too big to transport. So they left it in North Carolina, where they filmed most of this movie.
Cool.
They just, I don't know, it's probably in a warehouse or something somewhere.
Someone has it, for
it's
sure.
In a landfill. But, no, I don't fault the movie for that, because, I mean, as soon as you see Linda's dead body come up, and it's claymation, and it's not even really trying to look real.
No, the claymation in this is very off-looking, purposefully, I think.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's all intentional, and I don't think the reality of the effects matters. It's right in line with, I don't think this movie is scary, but I think this movie is fun as hell. And I think that's what, I will give Sam Raimi the benefit of the doubt that was what he was wanting to do, other than make something genuinely scary. I think he wanted to make a fun kind of monster movie thrill ride.
I think that's the goal here too, and I think it worked, because I don't feel like this was a movie that was particularly like, oh, I want to really explore like the world I built, right, and the themes here. Like, it's the same concept. It's nothing crazy, and that's not a dig. Like, it really just is. This is what it is. So if we're going to rehash this ground, we're going to have fun with it. We're going to try something new and make it weird. And this was his second movie, right? Or did he make something between this and that?
That's a really good question. I am not sure. Let's see. I know he made Darkman, I think, right around the same time.
And that's also a little bit comedic? Or did you just say weird?
It's very weird. I would have to watch it again to see if it's like, is this intentionally funny? Or, where is his directors? Let's see. He directed a bunch of TV stuff before Evil Dead. Looks like he directed something called Crime Wave in 85. Okay. Sam Raimi early shorts came out in 85. Could have been some stuff he made earlier. The Sappy Sap in 85. Evil Dead 2, 87.
Okay, so it looks like 2 movies.
So I think he made something, a couple years after Evil Dead. What is this Crime Wave movie?
It's the War on Crime.
Brian James, that guy's cool. Bruce Campbell's in that as well. Of course.
It's a sentient synthwave that just punches you in the face.
Let's see. Then he made Iggy Pop music. He made a couple music videos, and he made Darkman in 90. Army of Darkness in 92. Oh, Quick and the Dead. I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about a couple of these things he made in the 90s. Oh, wow. The Quick and the Dead is a really weird Western with Sharon Stone.
Okay.
And Gene Hackman. Oh, that cast is crazy. It's like Russell Crowe, Sharon Stone, Gene Hackman, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Jesus.
And it's just this surreal Western about a town that has a gunfighting tournament where you go and people murder each other in the streets. To the death. Yes.
Okay.
I forgot he made that. And then he made A Simple Plan, which is a crazy underseen movie. That movie is awesome. And it's about like these three who find a big bag of money. They find a crashed plane in the woods. And they find this big bag of drug money. And then they're just like, okay, here's what we do. And they come up with this easy plan. And then it just all starts to go haywire from there.
What could possibly go wrong?
Then he made The Gift with Keanu Reeves and Cate Blanchett, which I saw once and I don't remember it. And then he made the Spider-Man movies.
All right, so this was
he made some more. He made a couple for the love of the game. He made a baseball movie. Weird. I didn't know.
Interesting genre work.
Yeah, in the 90s, he made some more straightforward kind of movies.
It sounds like this was his second big movie. Like, he worked on.
This was
some
probably
other
his
stuff,
first big movie. His first like real budget to work with.
Sure.
Maybe Crime Wave. I've never heard of it. I'm sure could have been probably a low budget, and this was probably a low budget too. But yeah, he was still very early in his career here. But I think this is something where he was kind of driving the story that he wanted to tell.
Yeah, there's just big writing improvement in this one, and I know there's a co-writer.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that while writing, but like, I'm amazed at how much better the use of characters is in this, because this movie, it may have only boiled down to Ash and his girlfriend being the main group in the cabin, but this movie has more characters.
Yeah,
it ends up with 6 people plus the 2 dead parents,
right?
And like other things, like, but these 6 people who all feel like people.
They
all are distinct and they all have plot purpose. So it just works out a lot better.
And I like the way he did it, where these are 6 people who came from different places and kind of met up along the way. This wasn't 5 people. This wasn't the Scooby-Doo gang rolling up to the haunted house in the middle of the woods. This was Ash and his girlfriend going here. The professor's daughter landing and getting picked up by her boyfriend. And then running into the tow truck driver. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. These people sort of came together organically. And I really feel like cutting from the cabin to watching the professor's daughter slowly make her way out to the cabin, that really helped break everything up. We weren't spending all our time watching Ash, smash plates on his head to fill another 10 minutes. They were filling it up with other stuff that made these people feel real.
Yeah. We got a breather, and then, like, it's not so absurd that Ash is cutting his hand off with a chainsaw, because, we had a little breather from him, and now we're back.
Yeah. That plate, that whole sequence in the kitchen, I think is just it's so good. It's so, like, Bruce Campbell doing physical comedy, I think is just so funny. And I think that went on, like, the perfect amount of time.
Yeah, it could have easily run too long.
Yeah.
And
if they had stayed on it for another, like, 2 minutes, it's been like, all right, we get it. Now you have to go another 10 minutes to bring it back around. Like, I just think they weren't afraid. I keep saying they weren't afraid to have fun with this, but they just weren't afraid to be, like, zany funny, to tell Bruce Campbell, yeah, drag yourself by your fingertips and while you're unconscious. Like, that's such a good bit, and he does it really well. I think Bruce Campbell is really good at that thing that Bruce Campbell does, and this movie, I think, puts it on display.
I do not know any other of Bruce Campbell's work.
Oh, you know him from the Spider-Man movies.
I don't know who he was.
He was let's see. He's the ring announcer in the first Spider-Man.
Right.
He's the usher at the theater who won't let Peter in to see Mary Jane's play in the second one.
Yeah.
And the third one, I think he's like a waiter in a restaurant.
Yeah, the restaurant where Mary Jane works, I think.
Something, yeah. No, when he's gonna propose to her.
Oh.
He's like the waiter who screws up the when to bring the ring out or something like that.
All wonderful roles.
I mean, it's cameos,
yeah.
But like this is, because he just works with Sam Raimi all the time. But he's done other stuff. He did like TV, Briscoe County Jr. He did this TV show, and I don't know. I'd have to look. Bruce Campbell. He's just he's one of those guys who's kind of, before there were memes, he was kind of a human meme. Like, everybody was like, Bruce Campbell. He's kind of like what people do with like Nicolas Cage or Christopher Walken now. They're like, hey, it's that guy, and Bruce Campbell was kind of that guy for a long time.
I see. Well, he earned it with the hand crawling alone.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the thing that Bruce Campbell does, he does it here, and we're going to see it in Army of Darkness. Just this, he kind of carries himself with like a weird unearned bravado, this unearned confidence, and then the physicality that he has. I think that's just that thing that Bruce Campbell does really, really well. It's not like, yeah, he's not going to be like winning an Oscar for performances, but this thing he does is the thing you get him for. And I think by the time he's doing Evil Dead 2, Sam Raimi knew probably a little bit more how to use Bruce Campbell as,
sure,
what is he capable of, really? And then, kind of, let's work with that. Let's build this movie. Let's take this movie that I want to make. I'm speculating here totally. But it feels a little bit more like, I'm going to take this story that I want, and I'm going to sort of, build it around Bruce Campbell and what he can do.
Yeah, you're spot on. By the way, you're not speculating. You're reading the emails that were sent to us by Sam Raimi.
We're still going with this.
Sure.
All right.
I will say a lot of the jokes in here, or the bits, or whatever you want to call them, genuinely got me to laugh. But one that was unintentional, I was watching this with my boyfriend, and in the very beginning, they're alone in the cabin, and Ash goes, or his girlfriend says something like, "What are we gonna do?" And he goes, "Well, you're a girl and I'm a man." And me and my boyfriend just look at each other like, "What?" Like, implying sex,
right?
But like, I just thought it was
very funny that your joke that made you laugh. Yeah.
Yeah. That he said that to a gay audience, and we were just like, huh?
Yeah. Well,
I'm not canceling the movie.
Cancel Sam Raimi for not being
times.
Inclusive with his audience. I get it. You had to be there.
You didn't have to be there. It was funny.
Okay.
To the people who were there.
To the people who were there. Yes.
Anyway.
Well played, sir.
So, can we talk about the end of the movie? Because...
Sure.
What Planet of the Apes original twist ending kind of thing was this?
It's leading you into Army of Darkness.
I have so many questions. Well, yeah, that's clear that this is, he was like, okay, I'm writing the second one, might as well make another one and
lead it right
into
That's
that.
Right.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know,
it is a hard left turn. Like it is. I'm trying to picture a world, where this movie is new. And I'll say I was completely unaware of this movie until the first of this trilogy I heard of, because I wasn't a horror guy when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But the first, I remember when Army of Darkness came out, and I was like a senior in high school. And I didn't know that it was a sequel to anything, but there were a couple guys in my art class who were like, hey, Army of Darkness comes out this week. You know, like they were really excited for it. But I didn't know why anybody was excited for it. I didn't realize like this was a sequel to something that had a really dedicated cult following.
Sure.
You know,
did you end up watching it?
No, I didn't see any of these movies until years later. But like, imagine going and watching this haunted house movie in 1987 and just enjoying it. And then at the end, it's a medieval monster movie. Like, it just takes this hard turn through a portal, and then it's a completely different genre. You know, like, you're in medieval times.
Is it a different genre? I mean, I was just like,
well,
okay,
I mean,
we're
there's
doing time travel
still
now.
like monsters and stuff. Like,
yeah,
but like that, it takes it to such a, like, you're like, oh, okay, demons exist in this world. And now you're like, oh, time travel exists in this world too. That's never been hinted at. That's never been, you know, other than saying that, like, opening up portals and things like that. But like,
but I was thinking portals to hell.
You absolutely do not expect that. So I think it's kind of hilarious.
It's a really well done twist, I will say, because I don't think I even fully processed the end of this movie until like the next day.
It is the thing where it's like, this movie is not afraid to be weird, and that's how weird they're willing to be. And now you put that, if this movie came out today, the internet would explode. They'd be like, plot holes, this never established time travel, you know, like, it would be this giant thing. But I think this movie just is not afraid to go, you know what? We're going to do time travel now. That's what the third movie's going to be. Boom. Write it in. We're making it. And I kind of respect it for that. I respect it for just saying, this is what we're going to make it.
I'd respect it even if there wasn't a third movie. If
that's just where it ended,
solo movie, I would. Okay,
I think so too. I think I would just be like, all right.
There's something kind of satisfying about what happens there, though, because there's the whole thing with the pages. Read the pages. Okay, it's gonna open this portal. The monster gets sucked back in. Boom, bang, done. And it's like brought up a few times. And then at the end, I don't know. What's satisfying about it is that it's not like this very easy solution that they just stumbled upon. It's something that they had to fight to get the pages back. And then there was an unintended consequence, which is Ash getting sucked in too. Right. And I just thought that was really cool.
I think it's great. I think in that way, no, time travel is not really set up, but the events of the end are set up. And then when, you know, like, there is just something great about seeing him land in, like, Monty Python and the Holy Grail land. You know?
Why is that what I thought of too?
Because like, that's what it is. It's ridiculous medieval stuff, like the way they just start worshiping him because he has a shotgun.
Yeah. And what is
the car crashing down, everything.
I don't even remember the car crashing down.
Yeah, the car gets sucked through the portal too.
Of course, it has to be in the third movie.
It's exactly right. Sam Raimi has to put it in every one.
Well, I guess that really spoils that they don't end up back in the right time at all.
Does it?
I don't know. But also, I will say it's not like they introduce time travel, but this isn't the first time they introduce that castle. Because they show it in the scene,
that's
the
right.
flashback scene with the professor and all that. Like, that's how you know what that place is.
They totally do. I didn't even think about that. I just like, oh, anonymous medieval land.
So it is kind of there. And, Can I throw out my predictions based on
go ahead.
Literally nothing? Somehow I think Ash is going to be involved in the creation of that book.
Ooh.
Or
Ash makes
maybe
the Necronomicon.
not the book, or like some part. He's going to get adopted into a cult or something.
Huh?
I don't know.
All right. You heard it here.
I'll email Sam Raimi and I'll see what we come up
with. Send
it
back through the portal. Make sure you read the pages to open the portal up. And
that's right.
Yeah. Try not
hold
to let
on
the
to
cats
something
through.
tight,
yeah.
please.
Yeah, we lost Django in the last one.
Oh my God. Hope he's doing okay. He's being worshipped by ancient Egyptians.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's fine.
My last thing I want to talk about is just the practical effects. I think they are improved over Evil Dead, but not improved too much. I think they fit the tone of this movie perfectly. I know you think the tree looks lame, and that's fair, but I think for the silliness that this movie is, ultimately, I think that's fine. I love Ash. I love possessed Ash makeup.
Yes.
It's
very cool.
So good. I think that is legitimately good makeup effects. And the trick camera, the tracking shots through the woods when Ash is getting hurled through the woods by the demon at the very beginning.
Right, just thrown around.
That is such a great shot, and it's just like a high-speed tracking shot that he's rear projected against. And I think the effects take a leap forward and are still right on that edge of kind of being not great even for the day, but it all fits into this world perfect. Everything about this movie, I think, fits. This movie knows exactly what it is. And every element of this movie supports that, I think.
I'd say that's fair.
Do you think that's fair?
Yeah.
I mean, this ends with him with a quick cut montage of them fixing a chainsaw to his arm. And just totally leaning in on the ridiculous. And making that this new reborn Ash. And that's how silly this movie is. So every element of this movie is also silly.
Yeah, and what I'll say, okay, you brought up that, and that reminded me of how they reused the clock shot from the last movie. They basically reused the same scene where he's preparing himself for the final battle. He's walking through the house. But they do it right after he gets a chainsaw for an arm. So, if you play those scenes back to back, I feel like that really shows the identity of each movie. The first one being very serious, and the second one being serious but goofy at the same time.
Right.
And so I think that's cool.
I think if there's any shot that takes place in that living room from the first one, just the pan around shot and the deer head and all the stuff, the clock, everything, and you put that against the shot where everything in the living room is going crazy, where the deer head is alive and the lamp is, and Ash starts losing his mind, same thing. Basically the same set, same character, same plot, 100% different tone. You know what I mean? This one is supposed to be spooky and scary in Evil Dead. And Evil Dead 2, this movie is pushing itself off the rails. It's working to its benefit so much. For sure. But that's... that was my last note on that. What about you? You got anything else?
I don't think I have much else. I will say, the creepy elongated neck monster.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. That's all I gotta say. Just picture that.
Love it.
Bravo.
Yes. Claymation monster. And it just is perfect. Perfect for what this movie is.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Good call. That's Evil Dead 2. I give this... I don't remember Army... It's been a long time since I've watched Army of Darkness. I bet it's been 10 years since I've seen it. And I've only seen it a couple of times. But I have also only seen Evil Dead 2 a couple of times. And Evil Dead 2, as it sits right now, is my favorite of this trilogy. I think this is a really strong movie. That may change when I rewatch Army of Darkness, but I really do enjoy this movie. And I'm not like a huge fan of the trilogy. I'm not like in that cult audience, but I just think this is a really, really unique movie, and it really makes me respect that they were willing to make something so bizarre and unique. And yeah, I think this movie is a one of a kind.
It's very wacky.
Yeah. Wacky. That's a good word for it, actually.
It is. I don't know. I haven't seen the third movie, so I can just speak for the two, but thus far it is like beyond, like it has skyrocketed
right
way past.
Would you rewatch this movie?
Predecessor. I think probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. It's not, I don't know.
It doesn't have to be a top movie for you, but just like, if you were hanging out at a friend's house and they're like, hey, I got Evil Dead 2, you want to watch it? You wouldn't be like opposed to it. I think this movie's a lot of fun.
What's, real quick, like, I don't know why this popped into my head. There is a horror movie that I just thought of that's kind of similar to this. It's about, like, two guys who accidentally become serial killers. Like, they're mistaken as such.
And then Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yes. Yeah. They end up accidentally killing a bunch of people.
These teenagers are in the woods, and they're just out trying to fish, and these teenagers are running away from them because they're redneck-looking guys.
Running away into chainsaws.
They're being murdered left and right, yes.
Yeah,
Tucker and Dale is actually very funny.
It is funny, and I feel like that is the same genre as this.
That's a little more parody, I think. I don't think that's quite it is dark comedy. Okay. But I think that's more straightforward comedy. I feel like than this. But I get what you're saying. It's sort of in the same sphere of like I kind of feel like Tucker and Dale is almost slightly takeoff of this in the same way like Cabin in the Woods is almost like an homage to this. But yeah, I get it. Yeah. It's in that same sphere of like, this is really dark comedy and really goofy.
It's like really fucked up visuals.
And but yes, like the goriest deaths. And yeah, that's a pretty good call, actually. Yeah, I haven't watched Tucker and Dale in a long time. That's a really funny movie. Yeah, it really is. Let's close it out and head over to shout-outs. What do you got this week, Oz?
Sure. I am shouting out a TikTok account called Art Ed Guru. That's art education. Don't groan at Guru. But this is just an art teacher. I think he teaches middle or high school. And he reviews art videos that are on TikTok. He duets them with their little feature, and he will just talk about the merits of this technique, or here's what this person's doing, and kind of analyze it. And he's this guy. There are a lot of art reviewers out there, but what I like about this guy is he's constantly talking about what he doesn't know.
That's cool.
He has made videos about, hi, I won't review digital art because he gets a lot of requests of do this, do that, and he's just like, I won't review this because I don't know enough about it. I know it's real art, I know it's challenging and it's got pros and cons. I don't know what makes good digital art good.
That's
and so he just talks about like a bunch of different kind of stuff, and I think his thoughts are always like supportive. They're always like, they make you look at something in a new light,
right,
and it's, you appreciate the work that has been put into a piece of art when you watch a video of his.
I think it takes a lot to go on the internet and talk about what you don't know. I mean, it takes a lot of balls to do that. Like, but it's also a super ignorant thing to do, I think, a lot of times. So I really respect somebody who will go out publicly and go like, I don't know about this. I can't give you an answer. I think that's something people don't say enough.
Right. That's what gave me respect for him, and like I instantly clicked the follow button.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And that was a few weeks ago, and now I get a bunch of his videos, and sometimes it's of like I'll see a painting video, and then like a few scrolls on my For You page, and I'll see him, and
yeah,
I'll be like, oh yeah, you kind of, I had the same thought here, but then a different thought here, and I don't know. It's a really cool channel, and you should check it out.
I think I will.
What are you showing us today?
I am going to shout out it's just a playlist from a channel called Defunct Land. You're familiar with that, correct?
Probably.
They do a lot of like theme park history reviews and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a subset on that channel called Defunct TV, talking about like old kid shows and stuff like that. They did I think it's a 6-part series about the career of Jim Henson. And it takes you through every stage of his career from, Sam and Friends and his sort of creation of the Muppets to creating Sesame Street to creating the SNL years and the Muppet Show, Fraggle Rock, on into, spanning till Henson died.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really interesting look. I'm a big Jim Henson guy growing up. And so for me, it was really cool to see this really detailed and really cool history of this man's career sort of put together in, I don't remember how long the videos are. They're anywhere from a half hour to an hour. So it's a few hour series. It's like a good, altogether, it's like a good documentary and profile of his work. And it talks about the struggles of getting some of these shows made, how hands-on he was with a lot of the stuff. Some of the puppeteers that he brought in, like Frank Oz, who stayed with him for long, long careers. And yeah, it's really, really interesting. And I spent like a Saturday afternoon watching it when I kind of stumbled on it.
That sounds like a crash course I need, because like Jim Henson, I know who he is, I know what he's done, but like not in what order or like anything about him. Like, I know there's a Muppet Studio or something, and he's made like literally a bunch of, he's helped in the production of a bunch of movies.
He's been stuff. The Henson Studio was like the Henson Creature Shop. He made like stuff for Hitchhiker's Guide. He made, I think, Marvin the Martian, or not he, but the Henson Creature Shop. And they made the who are the aliens who read poetry?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Like, they made all of these things. They made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the 90s movies. They made those turtle suits.
Really the headliners of like prop design.
Of creature design, practical effect kind of things. It's sort of like what Industrial Light and Magic was for special effects back in the day. It's sort of what they were for practical effects, in a certain sphere. Kind of Rob Bottin or Rick Baker would be the kind of the horror movie equivalents of that. Like, these are these guys you call Stan Winston. But yeah, Henson carved that out. I don't remember if that's covered a lot in that series.
Well, because that's something that's so that's worth its own topic.
It's a business that he founded, but has carried on.
To this day, right?
I think it's still going, yeah. But I mean, like, most of that time has been without Jim Henson. You know what I mean? But no, it is about basically like him creating these puppets and creating these TV shows. Labyrinth is a big part of that. Dark Crystal. It's really, really interesting. And I also have Imagination Illustrated. I'm telling you, but I'm telling you on mic. It is a book about Jim Henson and his career. And it's also really, really good.
Dad, we don't read on this podcast.
No, but there's a lot of pictures in it. So that's really cool. That's Defunct TV Jim Henson. And that link, as well as the link to Art Ed Guru, will be in the show notes. So please check those out. I know we got some Henson people who listen to this.
Very cool.
And some artists who listen to this. So please check those out. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rude. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. It helps our visibility. It helps us grow the show.
That's right. Another way to help us grow is to tell people. It's as easy as sending a quick email. Like I did to my fellow friend, Sam Raimi.
Wow.
Yep.
Very impressive.
Just a quick, hey, listen to this show. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
That's right.
And since you sent it 40 years in the past,
before
now
email existed.
He's saying, what is a podcast? What is email? How am I even reading this?
A screen, like a ghost screen, pops up in front of
hologram.
Him. You have mail.
Next week's movie, Army of Darkness. We're going to finish off the Evil Dead trilogy.
We're going to close the portal to this bizarre franchise. Until Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Austin, what's your social media links?
You can find me on the internet. No, that's it.
Hey, all right. Thank you.
No, you can find me on Twitter. I'm Austin and Rude. Or for Doctor Who content, I am Old Who Review.
And I am at philrude.com. You can get all of our episodes there. Speaking of which, I need to get to work putting those episodes up. At philrude on Twitter, at philrude75 on Instagram. Oss, you want to read the credits?
Yep, we did everything ourselves.
Well, there you have it. We'll see you next time on The Picture Show.
See ya. Wouldn't want to be.
I'm leaving that in.